Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Caitlin Saposi-Belknap. I'm Move to Amend's National Director. I'm in Sacramento, California this afternoon, and I'm going to lead our webinar today. Thanks, everyone, for being here. The webinar will be recorded, and a video will be provided for everyone who RSVP'd, as well as the slides. And there's also a page on our website with all of this information as well that I'll tell you about. So if you missed some of it or want to just catch up again later, that will be easy to do. So hopefully everyone is hearing audio now and everything's working. You can chat your questions to me on the left-hand side at the bottom, and I'll be able to see them. I'll probably kind of take most of the questions at the end, but you can type them as we go so you don't have to remember them. Then I'll double back, and if there's something that looks like it's urgent or clarifying in terms of what I'm talking about, then I will pause. If you're having technical difficulties, first of all, I'm sorry. You can try contacting support at any meeting, and they're normally pretty good about responding, but I won't be able to do tech support while I'm doing the presentation, so I can't really help you. So please don't chat me tech support type questions. Again, the recording will be available, and so if you miss anything due to technical problems, I would recommend that you up that way. And I'm going to skip the agenda because I realized right after I got started that I forgot to update the slides for the agenda for this time. So what we're going to talk about today is Move to Amend's first ever We the People National Lobby Day, which will be on May 9th. And we're going to talk about how to participate if you are coming to our National Leadership Summit in Washington, D.C. that weekend, and how you can participate from home if you're not able to come to Washington, D.C. So we'll do both. And to start us off, though, I'm going to give a little bit of background about Move to Amend because we do have a number of new folks. Participating in Lobby Day is a great way to start to get involved with Move to Amend in a deeper way if you are not yet active. So welcome if that's you. Before I launch into that, though, I did want to just kind of check and see who all is here and what your experience is. So I'm going to pop a poll onto the screen. Who could answer the questions if you've been engaged with citizen lobbying before, if you've gone to see your legislator, either at the state level, national level, both, or if this is brand new to you. Just be helpful for me to know kind of who the audience is today. To respond. See these responses as well, too. So it looks like most of the people here have done some level of lobbying before, but not by a lot. So it's about half and half who have a little bit more than 50% have done some level of lobbying. Not that many folks have done it at the national level only, and then 45% of folks are new to this. So that's great. That's exciting. And another question that I have for you here at the beginning is just as you're coming into this, what are you thinking, how are you thinking that you're going to participate? How are you planning to participate in our Lobby Day this year? Are you planning to come with us to D.C.? Are you going to set up a meeting at your district office? Are you going to call and email your representatives? That one goes without saying, so I hope everyone will just do that. But if that's all you're planning to do, and if you're not sure yet, you can say that. So we just want to get a sense. It looks like most of the people here are here because you're coming to our summit. However, there are a number of you who are not sure yet. Hopefully this webinar will help give you more information so you can make up your mind. And there are some of you who are already planning to participate from home. So great. Thank you. That's very helpful. And, of course, you can change your answer at the end or in the coming weeks. So the last thing I just want to say before we go is that it's actually very fortuitous that we're doing this lobby day on May 9th. As some of you may have noted in the emails that we've been sending announcing this date, May 10th is actually the 130th anniversary, for lack of a better word, of the Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad decision, which those of you who are familiar with that case know that there's a lot of actually kind of conspiracy and intrigue involved with the way that decision or ruling, at least on the case, went down in history. But it is sort of known as the first place where corporations were able to get a foothold in being recognized as people by the Supreme Court. And then there were subsequent rulings where it was even more definitive and clear that the court was going to basically turn corporations into people. And so it is fitting that 130 years later, Move to Amend is doing our lobby day. Basically at that same time, we kind of draw attention to this case every year, because part of what sets Move to Amend apart is that we are the only amendment campaign that is focusing on actually undoing corporate constitutional rights as well as getting money out of politics. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that and the background just to make sure everyone's on the same page, and then we'll get into lobby day. So Move to Amend is a coalition of, at this point, thousands of organizations, hundreds of thousands of individuals committed to social and economic justice, ending corporate rule, and building a vibrant democracy that is genuinely accountable to the people and not corporate interests. And the number one kind of first thing on the list towards building that real democracy from our perspective is that we need to pass the We the People Amendment to make clear that artificial entities like corporations or nonprofit corporations or unions or any entity that's made through government, through a government chartering process, does not have constitutional rights. Constitutional rights are inalienable rights that are recognized because we are human beings, and that is where our rights come from, not from the Supreme Court. And also that spending money in political campaigns is not First Amendment speech, but just spending money. The Supreme Court created those two doctrines, and so by constitutional amendment, we need to undo both of them. We also want to provoke discussion and organizing around how to make real the promise of American democracy through constitutional renewal, because actually the fact that corporations can claim constitutional rights and the fact that spending money in elections undermines our political process, while from our perspective, linchpin doctrines that are in the way of real democracy, they are not the only thing blocking democracy for the public in the United States and beyond. And so we need to also be sparking a larger conversation through our work to pass the amendment. Our principles and values are anti-oppression and solidarity organizing, meaning that if we're talking about building a democracy movement in the United States, it's critical that we recognize that the history of this country has been one of denying originally the majority of people, and through movement struggle, that number became less and less, and there are still people who are denied fundamental human rights under our laws and our governance in this country. And it's important that when we're talking about who is a person, we recognize that the history of this country has been denying personhood to anybody who was not a white, propertied man who was Christian. And that history reverberates today and has impacts on is what creates institutional racism and many of the policies that we see in the legal system, in the justice system, in access to resources. And so it's not really authentic to talk about building a democracy movement if we're not also tackling anti-oppression. And building solidarity is kind of the antithesis to oppression. It's also important that we recognize that in the United States we have a distinct culture because of that history that is one where we are very divided, especially around race lines, but we're divided on generational lines, on class lines, and a number of other ways, and unless we put dedicated time and energy into learning the skills to bridge those divides, we'll continue to be divided even as we work on our movements, and we see that. And so part of our training and our work needs to be to overcome those divides and build bridges. We do that through coalition and movement building. The only way that we're going to be able to amend the Constitution is through building a mass movement. It is not going to happen because we have, the right team of lawmakers in Washington, D.C., or attorneys at our back. It is going to happen because we have a mass movement. That's the only way the Constitution has really been amended before, especially in meaningful social justice measures. So we need to draw on those lessons and recognize that our strategy is to build a movement. And that means that sometimes we might make decisions in the shorter term that actually mean, kind of more work and more effort to build a broader and deeper mass than expedient opportunities that might arise. And that's actually part of why it's significant that it's 6 years in before Move to Amend is even doing a lobby day in Washington, D.C., because we have been focusing on movement building and grassroots organizing. Grassroots organizing is the only effective way to build movements from our perspective, when people have relationships in their communities and can build for political power, is how effective movements are built, and so that is why Move to Amend is structured around local affiliate groups, and why you have seen the work that we've been doing for the past 6 years focused on community resolutions, sometimes state resolutions after that local base has been built, and on doing education and organizing at the local level. We have a dedication to political education because every successful movement has had a component of it, self-education and understanding how we got into the situation. Citizens United is not what created the circumstances that we're in now. Citizens United is a symptom of the larger problem, a piece of the puzzle, and it's important that we peel back those layers to understand the full picture, which is an ongoing process, in order to be effective and to ensure that the solutions that we're putting forward are really going to actually bring about the change that we want. And so we have work that we do internally as Move to Amend around political education for our leadership, but also a lot of our work externally as we build this movement is education work. And then we have a principle for ourselves that we hold ourselves to at Move to Amend, which is to keep our political and economic independence. We're in a system where the dominant two parties are both corrupted by corporate and big money influence, and we need to maintain separation from those parties. Some of us might belong to those parties or other parties, but it's important that as Move to Amend, we are nonpartisan and are able to work with folks from any party, and also that we are not influenced by basically the status quo that has an interest in keeping things as it is. Same goes for economic independence. We see so many nonprofits and non-governmental organizations that are financed by the wealthy who have an interest in keeping the system as it is and who curb their own demands based on the priorities or perspective of their funders. So it's important that Move to Amend outside of that kind of a situation, and that's why Move to Amend is funded by individuals, and our average donation is $40, and that's been that way all along, and we intend to keep it that way. We need, donation. We need to raise funds in order to be successful and to do all of this work. However, it's important that it come from the grassroots and from our base and from thousands and thousands of people rather than any one or small group of individuals. So that's kind of where we're coming from and what we hold ourselves to. And if you step to work with Move to Amend, that's what we ask you to basically sign on to and commit to as well. Just a quick reminder in terms of amending the Constitution. It's not something that comes up in everyday conversation necessarily. So to amend the Constitution, there are two mechanisms as laid out in the Constitution. The first is through Congress, so 2/3 of both houses of Congress, the House and the Senate, must pass an amendment resolution, and then 3/4 of the state legislatures must have to ratify that amendment for it to become part of the Constitution. The other avenue has not been done before, and so when we think of amending the Constitution, most thoughts go to the first channel. But it is also said in the Constitution that the states could hold a convention. So 2/3 of state legislatures call for a convention to propose an amendment or amendments to the Constitution, and then yet and still, if it happens that way, still 3/4 of the states have to ratify any proposals that come from a convention of the states. So that's what we're working with. Obviously, as I said, most people are familiar with the first way, if they're familiar with how to amend the Constitution at all, because that's the way it's been amended in the past. And so the way that stuff like this works, you have to kind of go through the mechanisms that people are expecting. So we do have an amendment in Congress, and we'll talk about that. Obviously, that'll be the focus of our lobby day. It's called House Joint Resolution 48, or the We the People Amendment. Sorry, my dog is making noises there. I hope you're not hearing that too loudly. That's one mechanism, but Move to Amend has said that we definitely are not opposed in principle to the second route. And in fact, it may be necessary to at least, at a minimum, threaten a convention in order to make Congress act, because we don't expect Congress to jump on board with this. The leadership for this movement is not going to come from Washington, D.C. So we may need to have some legislatures that begin to call for a convention, and we may even be in a situation where our current elected officials now and in the years ahead are so corrupted by corporate money and big money interests that they will never pass an amendment. And so we need to be prepared for Plan B, which is the Constitutional Convention. And there are a lot of unknowns with that. There are certainly people who have concerns that are warranted about what that might look like and how that might go down, and if we were to potentially move backwards should that happen. And so, and we share some of those. But the reality is that the only way we will be able to amend the Constitution through Congress is through building a mass movement, and certainly the only way we would have a successful convention is a mass movement. So our work right now is the same either way, and we don't really need to choose that fork in the road as of yet. We need to be prepared for either, but we need to do the work right now of building a movement. So that's what you see Move to Amend focusing on. Our primary strategy is the American people, not Congress, to build that movement. We do coalition building, reaching out with other organizations who are working on issues affected by corporate power. We pay special attention to those who are most impacted, who are on the front lines of dealing with the effects of corporate capitalist system that is also entrenched in, a racist and white supremacist system. Because those folks are most likely allies. And while we may not have the tools yet to build bridges across for those alliances, they are the people who are most likely to stand with us, who are willing to put time, money, energy into this movement. And so it's important that we build those bridges to those communities. And it's also important that we understand that this needs to be an intergenerational movement. It's a longer-term struggle. It's not going to happen tomorrow. We're not going to come out of Lobby Day on May 9th and on May 10th have amended the Constitution. So we need to be prepared to be bringing in people of the millennial generation and younger, because they're the people who will actually be in power when our amendment passes. We don't talk about this amendment as happening, generations from now. I'm 36 years old. It will happen in my lifetime, and I intend to have a full life afterwards as well, not when I'm 90 years old. I remember, thinking about environmental struggles when I was younger as something that maybe we'll get there someday. And that is not the way we think of this. It is critical. It needs to happen yesterday. And so it's not something that we can put off for future generations to deal with. However, we do need to be real that this is a marathon, not a sprint. It's not going to happen tomorrow, and we need to build power for the long term. We do that through community organizing, not just activism. What that means, at least to me, is that we're cognizant of the fact that in this social media world where a lot of us are encouraged through organizations that we may trust and put a stake in to participate by, clicking a petition, that we need to go beyond that. We need to actually build relationships. We need to build for power, and that happens through organizing, not from, clicking a button or even all showing up at a rally on the same day and then everyone going home. This is about really changing the balance of power in this country, and that's going to happen only through work and struggle, and it doesn't need to be, hard all the time. It can be fun, but it isn't going to happen just because, we sat in front of our computers. We need to be having face-to-face relationships and organizing for power, and that's why our focus is on grassroots work. But today, we're going to talk about some of our national work. And we are, coming out of our leadership summit. We'll be unveiling our 10-year plan, and you will see that we're going to be focusing more on DC in the years to come. That doesn't mean that we're turning away from our grassroots organizing and our base. We need to have that be what anchors the work that we do when we're focusing on Congress or on Washington, D.C., but it is time for us to begin to develop our muscles and our strength to learn these skills to meet our congresspeople toe-to-toe on their turf, so to speak. So what we'll be doing on Lobby Day on May 9th is a number of our affiliate leaders. Remember, our affiliates are our local groups. So folks from all over the country will be traveling to D.C. for our National Leadership Summit, and on the last day we'll be doing visits to congressional offices there on Capitol Hill. A number of our affiliate leaders will also be doing visits back home in district offices, and if you're new, that's something that you can do as well. You can organize district meetings in your state capital, or if you're in a larger state, then there might even be a district office closer to you. And all Move to Amend supporters will be encouraged to call in the week before and the week of May 9th so we can really create a buzz and energy and make sure that this is on the radar for the folks whose offices we're visiting, but also others as well. If you haven't participated in lobbying before, it's important to be clear on what the purpose is and what the goals are. So what we'll be doing is educating our elected officials about this issue. Our experience so far is that they know very little, actually, beyond sound bites about, money and politics. That's obviously something that at this point is mainstream, and, they would have an opinion, if pressed at least, on money and politics and Citizens United. But anything deeper than that, understanding corporate constitutional rights, understanding what the real solutions are that are needed, why we even would need to do it through an amendment versus legislation, expect those to be things that your elected officials don't necessarily know as well as you do. We also want to identify whether our legislators are supporters, opponents, or undecided, and we want to move supporters to become champions to co-sponsor our amendment. If someone is undecided, we want to move them into being more open to our perspective and seeing some of the value of what we're talking about. We might not get their commitment that day, but we'll at least open the door. And anybody who is an opponent, we want to soften or neutralize their position. We want to give them some things to think about. We want to make them feel as though continuing to oppose is maybe not in their best interest, and so maybe if nothing else, they'll be silent. So regardless of where your legislators are, you can meet with them and move them in this way. And we're not expecting that everybody's going to come out with co-sponsorship and support. our targets for this year are mostly on U.S. House of Representatives members because we have our bill in the House of Representatives as House Joint Resolution 48, and it is relatively easy compared to, say, the Senate, for folks to just sign on to that. They don't need to show that much leadership. They just need to sign on with their colleagues. So if your House member has not done so yet, that would be where you would want to focus. But if your House member has already signed on, or if you have time to meet with senators, we're not discouraging that either. Our goal in terms of our strategic plan is for the amendment to be introduced in the Senate next year, and we've already done some work to try and identify senators who might help us out in that department, but we need more. And so if you want to meet with your senators and encourage them, or at least educate them about the issue, point them to the House resolution, then that would certainly be a fruitful use of your time as well. And also I'll say that if your representative has already signed on, because a number of our very active affiliates, you've already done the work and you've brought them along and they are co-signers, it's not necessarily a bad idea to meet with their office in D.C. just to be on their radar. This is something that's going to need to be introduced every single congressional session, and so at the end of this year, our bill will expire and will need to be introduced again next year. We may lose our lead sponsor. He may not get reelected, and we don't want to depend on any one person or small group of people, so it's important that we continue to solidify the support from our co-sponsors that we currently have, and ask them for help. Ask them, if their office is actually proactively seeking out new co-sponsors, and if not, encourage them to do so, and ask for their advice on what we could be doing to help support them more, and just deepen the relationship that Move to Amend has with these folks. So, pretty much, whoever you want to meet with is fine, and it'll slightly change, what you talk about depending on who they are and what their past relationship with us is, and that's all fine. Our current co-sponsors of House Joint Resolution 48 are listed here. I'm not going to read through all of them on the webinar, but you can quickly see if that's your state and district. If you don't know who your representative is, you can easily just do a quick internet search and find out. And then this list is listed on the Move to Amend website at movetoamend.org/amendment. So if you need to get clarity on where your person or persons stand, you can do that later. So what Move to Amend will provide through this process is talking points. There's actually a page on our site that I finished putting together today. There's a couple things missing for those of you who are not traveling to D.C. because we're focusing our attention there kind of first because they have deadlines coming up and things like that and have to turn their attention to traveling. So in the next week, there will be a couple more resources added up. But you can find talking points there. We will create just a one-pager with educational information and then also the We the People Amendment language that you would leave behind. If you feel it would be helpful, if you're contacting someone who is not a co-sponsor yet, we could do the work to provide you a list of the names of the Move to Amend petition signers in your district who you could bring with you to show numbers and to show that it's not just you. And we also, for those of you who are attending the D.C. Lobby Day, we will be sending probably tomorrow an email to each of you that will include everyone else in your state who will be at Lobby Day. And it'll be a group email, so you can respond to each other. So if you're wanting to contact senators, you can identify that so that you're not having multiple groups contacting senators. Most affiliates don't span district boundaries, but there are some cases where you do. So also we want to make sure that if you haven't connected with each other already, that you're only setting up one meeting and that all of you are going to it. And then we're also available for troubleshooting and support. So those are generally and broadly the things that we're expecting to provide for you. What you'll need to do is decide who you want to target, again, based on what I talked about before, existing co-sponsors, new House members, or senators. You'll want to schedule the meetings. We decided that we're not going to schedule the meetings for you because you actually have a better chance of landing the meetings. You're the constituents, and that would be the first question that we would be asked if we were to do that. Are you constituents, or do you have, can I speak with a constituent? So you're better off scheduling those meetings yourself, and the page on our site includes a script you can use, and either on phone or by email. And you would want to contact the scheduler for your legislator and start there. And I would encourage you to not be discouraged if you don't hear back right away and to be persistent. They're busy, but it's also their job to schedule meetings with you. We all know that they spend most of their time meeting with lobbyists, and so that's why you're going to need to be persistent. But it should be that you should be able to get at least a response and more information. And then you'll want to research your representatives. So the main thing that I would encourage you to look at would be, first and foremost, have they signed on to one of the competing amendment proposals would be good to know, because that's probably what they're going to ask you right away if they have. How does this compare? So you want to be prepared to speak to that, and that's part of what we'll include in your packet and training materials as well, so you'll be prepared for how to speak to that. But you want to know if your legislator already supports, publicly funding elections or only overturning Citizens United. Maybe they don't understand what the difference is, and they don't realize that there's a better solution, but you want to speak to what they're starting with. It also would be good if you know this, or if there are members in your group who are kind of more politically experienced, or if you have friends who are active in politics in your community. If you don't know kind of what the issues are that matter most to your representative, that would be helpful to know, and also kind of some of the key organizations in your community that have worked with your representative. So are they big on environmental issues? Are they big on health issues? Some of that you can find out by going to their page on their website page on the internet. It might be, a little bit hard to tell exactly what they're about from just hearing it from them, but if they're really concerned about healthcare, then certainly when you talk to them coming at it from an angle of why we need to get corporations out of deciding healthcare policy for us would be strategic. So you want to do a little bit of research going in. And if you can, this is probably going to be mostly just for those of you who are with affiliates, but any endorsing organizations that you have been able to secure that are from your district, you want to bring a list of those as well. So let's see. It looks like there's a couple questions. Let me just make sure not missing anything. Lucy from Colorado is asking, can you provide a list of the competing proposals so that we can easily check if our representative has signed on to one of them? Yeah, you actually, on the page on the Move to Amend website, which will come up here at the end of this presentation, there's a link to the page on our site that provides that. But it's always movetoamend.org/other-amendments. And that's where you can see the comparison of the proposals, what they are, and then from there you can do the work to find out if your representative has signed on to them by clicking through them on the Congress website. Let's see. Can you get us endorsing organizations from the website by zip code? Michael from Ohio is asking that. Actually, we might be able to help you with that, but one of the things that we've found is that the endorsing organizations oftentimes do not really fill out that information very productively, so there are a lot of holes. So I would encourage you to do some of that compiling yourself, but if you need our help, we can see what we can do. One of the things that affiliates are encouraged to do is actually keep the endorsing organizations that you secure on your page on the site as well. So if you've been doing that all along, then you'll be well positioned. If you have not been doing that, then maybe we can kind of help you get started and that together, and that would be a lasting resource that would be helpful going forward anyway. So for those of you who are going to be in DC, here's the page on the website. You can't just click here, but at the end, when you're finished with the survey, you'll actually be taken to that page, and it's also linked from the Summit web page. So there you have kind of step-by-step instructions and scripts. You want to get started with your scheduling of meetings now. Generally, it's not a great idea to actually do it much more than 3 or 4 weeks ahead of time, and it will be common for them to tell you that they might not be able to finalize and guarantee your meeting until 1 week out. So expect to kind of get something penciled in, and that's why it doesn't really help to start too much earlier, because you're just going to probably be kind of pushed down the line. So also, as we say on this page, expect there's a good chance that you will actually be meeting with a staffer instead of your representative, and that's true if you're doing a district meeting as well. And that's actually fine, because pretty much no legislator, unless they're really well-versed on something and kind of a champion in their own background, is going to sign on to a bill without taking into account their staffer's opinion. So a staffer is actually the first and best place to start, because that's who you need to convince first. And that's who's going to also be likely to read the materials that you provide and actually take into account what you're saying, because they're busy but less busy than the legislator. So chances are that you'll be meeting with a staffer, and that's fine. Chances are that that person might be young, and it's important that you not discredit them because of that. Let's not be ageist through the process. One, because that's just a bad idea, but two, this person actually is going to have weight with this legislator. So even if you feel as though they look like they're about 20 years old, and how could they possibly know what they're talking about, they actually are going to be the ones who are going to recommend what happens, either to their boss in the staffing office or to the legislator themselves. So treat them as if you're basically talking to your legislator. Like I said, we'll send an email to everyone who's coming to D.C. from your state to help you coordinate and make sure that nobody is contacting an office more than once. I know that many of you are already doing that coordination, so we're just going to help make sure that it's happening and that nothing slips through the cracks. You're going to want to schedule your meeting sometime between 9 a.m. and 12:30 p.m. if possible, and be careful about setting more than one meeting until you know the spot where it's at, because sometimes the places where these meetings are quite far away. So you might think, okay, I got a meeting for 10, I can schedule another meeting for 11 with my senator, and actually, you're done at 10:30, but it takes you 45 minutes to get there and you miss your meeting. So just be cognizant of giving enough space and not trying to jam them in, but be there for all of them. You can always follow up with additional district meetings if you don't catch everybody that you would want to. And again, our priority is for House members. That's our suggestion. But if you choose to target senators, that is up to you. Question from Kendra in Florida. Who should we request the list of petition signers in our district? That would be a good thing to send through the affiliate support email that affiliates normally write to, and we'll farm it out to either an intern or the appropriate staff person. Catherine from Pennsylvania asks, is it okay if we are the only affiliate in our state to meet with the representatives outside our district? Yeah, you can try that. If you want to meet with neighboring representatives, I mean, they're always going to listen to constituents more, but on the other hand, you're not just random citizens. You're with Move to Amend, which is a national organization. So maybe it will be a little bit of an experiment, and it might depend on who, and it probably would be good if we worked with you afterwards to get some follow-ups from some people who are in that district. But let's see what happens. If you want to give it a shot, let's try it. All right. So before your meeting, in the next 3 to 4 weeks, you want to get familiar with talking points, which we have on our website already. You want to practice telling your story. Why do you support the We the People Amendment? It's always good to make it personal. So just think about, why you're here and what issue matters to you that has brought you to believe that undoing corporate constitutional rights is the way to achieve, the issue that you care about most. And to do that research of your representative. I'm not suggesting that you need to do extensive amounts of research before you're able to meet with them, but just the background on knowing if they have supported other amendments, proposals, and if there are kind of key issues or constituencies, stakeholders that they're most likely to care about, and if you can speak to support from, say, organized labor or environmental groups in your community or, healthcare advocates, that will go a long way, too. At your meeting, you want to make sure that you're dressing appropriately, so professional, for lack of a better word. I don't actually like that term, and I think that, principle, we should be able to wear whatever, but you will be better heard if you are dressed similarly to others who work at Capitol Hill. So that means no jeans, sandals, flip-flops, or T-shirts. You don't have to wear a whole suit and tie, but dressing on the kind of more professional side of things will be more effective. Be prepared to meet with the legislative assistant. Stay on topic. You're not going to have very much time. 15, 20 minutes might be all that you get, so don't be a robot and just walk in there and demand support, but be careful because too much chit-chat and you might run out of time before you're really actually able to get to the topic that you're there for. You want to find out what your legislators' views are on the issue. So ask questions. Certainly provide, your story and your information, but also ask, what is your legislator, if you're talking to a staff person, what is your boss's perspective on this? What's the experience level? And part of that is you're getting information for all the rest of us and those of us back at National to kind of figure out where the holes are and how we can do follow-up to effectively weigh or educate, depending on what they do and don't know already. When you conclude the meeting, you want to leave the educational information that we'll provide for you. You want to leave your contact information. So a good idea is to bring some business cards. You can bring your personal business cards. If you don't have business cards, you can make some. And offer to be a resource going forward because you are an expert in this compared to them. And so act like it and offer to be somebody that they can call if they have questions. And you could also always send them to National Move to Amend for that as well. But you're there to begin to initiate a relationship if you don't already have one and deepen one that if you do already have a little bit of one. And take a picture, especially if you're there as a group. If there's a group of you, please make sure you take a picture. But even if it's just you, take a picture with a legislator or staffer. This is a historical day, and it's important that we capture it. And we'll use that on social media and for fundraising and for archival purposes and all those things. So take a picture and then make sure you get it to us. And this is all true if you're at DC or at your district meeting. All of these things apply as well. In general, don't make statements that assume political views are shared by you. Just be strategic about that. You're there to talk about Move to Amend, so, getting into a conversation about who they're supporting as a superdelegate in such and such primary might not be very helpful, so just stay away from that, I would suggest. And be respectful when you're talking about other lawmakers. General professional etiquette. After your meeting, you're going to want to complete a report form before you leave. We'll provide that as part of the packet for those of you who are in D.C., and we're asking you to finish that up before you get on the plane or the bus or the metro to go for home. We'll be convening for lunch afterwards, so that's when you can give it back to us. If you're not in D.C., we ask you to submit a report form back to us and let us know what happened. So that's another reason why it can be helpful to have more than one person at this meeting, because having one person do most of the talking and another person kind of take notes as you go can be really helpful. If you can't do that, then just make sure that you fill out the report form kind of right after the meeting before things, escape out of your memory. You're going to want to send a thank you letter as soon as possible when you get home. You could also even mail it from D.C. We'll provide you a template. I'm not sure yet whether we'll have kind of postcards that you can write on or whether you want to send a formal letter. That might be up to you. One you can do right away. The other you would have to do from home, but you want to make sure to do it ASAP, and including, a general thank you is good, but something specific from the meeting would be even better, and mentioning follow-up as well would be good. And then plan to have a telephone conversation in 6 weeks with that staffer that you met with. And then also potentially think about having a follow-up district meeting to either meet with their district staff or maybe them when they're home next, or a combination of those things. Because, again, chances are they're going to tell you, we're going to have to think about it. We're going to have to read over this information, and no one's going to, unless there's someone who's actually taken the pledge to amend and you've already been working on them, you're probably not going to get that commitment right there. They also probably are going to want to talk to Nolan, our lead sponsor. And so that's part of why we need to know who everybody met with and the report forms, because we'll be passing that on to Nolan's staff, and hopefully they'll do some of the work as well to kind of solidify the support. But you're going to want to plan to probably have to follow up in order to get anything concrete. So this is really just a first step. So, again, you want to go to this page on the site and kind of get more of the step-by-step. I walk through the broad strokes, but gives you the scripts and some of the resources you've been asking about, like what are the other amendment proposals and their bill numbers, et cetera, is there. You want to get started scheduling your meetings either later this week or start early next week. Good idea to recruit friends to join you. If you're coming to D.C. and you already know who's coming, then maybe you've already done that. But if you're looking at a district meeting, great to not do it on your own. So recruit some folks to join you. You could also contact our office and say, hey, I'm on my own here. I don't have any friends who will join me. Is there anyone else in my area who's expressed interest in this or getting involved in Move to Amend? And we could see what we could do to see if we can link you up with somebody else in your district to get started. Let us know what your plans are. So if you're going to D.C., we already have the form for you to fill out to tell us who you are planning to meet with, and once you get the meeting, when it is. I haven't finished that form for those of you who are not coming to D.C. yet, but it will be linked on the page where all of this stuff is, so look for that. And at the at the summit in D.C., we will be doing a lobby training, and that will be the place where you can kind of make sure everything's clear. We'll provide you all the materials that you'll have. You can huddle with the folks that you'll be meeting with. Whether it's other people in your district or maybe just other people from your state, and kind of assign roles and role play. If you are not going to be in D.C. and can't do that training with us, it is a good idea to before your actual meeting, do a little bit of role play and just practice and be prepared for what you're going to say if, in the conversation. And remember that when questions come up, if you don't know the answer, you can always say, I don't know, but let me follow up with you, and I will get you the answer. And that's part of what we'll then collect in the follow-up and make sure to help you be able to provide. So that's how it's going to go down. Does anybody have any questions? Let me scroll through these and see which ones I missed. Michael from Arizona asks, when do our legislative representatives come back home so we can meet with them here? There is a calendar where you can see the congressional calendar, but how about if I provide a link to that on the kind of central page where we're keeping all of this so that you can see when they're in session in D.C. and when they're going to be doing district meetings, and you don't have to go hunt for it. In general, a good time, which is a little bit of a ways away, so you don't want to wait until August to do any contact, but you might do a follow-up phone call or two this, June, July, and then the August recess is a common time when legislators are all home and they expect to be contacted for district meetings, and they might be doing district events. So keeping in mind that schedule would be good as you're planning your summer, basically. Mark in Florida asks, who do you actually meet with? Do you make an appointment? I think I probably covered that, but yeah, we're looking to make appointments. If for some reason you are absolutely unable to get a response from your legislator and you think that it would be strategic to stay focused on them versus turning to a senator or a neighboring district, then you could try knocking on the door, and that certainly, is something that people do sometimes just kind of going through the halls. So that would be, kind of a plan C. But our recommendation is you try to get a scheduled meeting and only do cold knocking if you're unable to do that. Let's see. Most of these I answered. Barbara asks, can we access maps of their offices? Yeah, we'll provide in the packet a map, and I can actually link it from the central page now, too, so you can just do that ahead of time. Angela asks, how many people is best for our meeting? I would say the ideal is something like 2 to 4. If you want to do more, that's not impossible. If you're meeting in a district office, more is more likely to be easily accommodated. In D.C., sometimes you might be like in basically like a side room that's like the size of a closet, so too many people might be tough. But if you have that many people in D.C., say there's 6 of you from your state, and it makes sense for all of you to go, then, just tell them that that's how many folks you'll have, and you might have to have some people stand. So 1 is not ideal, but you can also do it with 1. So I would say at least 2 is preferable, but don't be deterred if it's only you. I would encourage you to still go ahead and do it if you're going to be in D.C. If you're not going to be in D.C. and can get more than 1, that would be better. Catherine asks, do not snail mail letters go through such a security process? They can take forever. Would a fax be better? Yeah, you can do fax or email for the thank you letters to follow up. Although I would say, sending the email or the fax and then also having a letter, because even though it does take longer, it's still carries more weight if it's actually a hard copy of something, is what I have always understood to be the case. So I would do both and rather than only 1. Okay. Charlene in Massachusetts asks, should in-district people schedule meeting before or after 5/9? I would say if you can do it on 5/9 to just go ahead and do it. That's one of the things you can say in the meeting is that we've got folks in D.C. there actually might be a chance that you could meet in district with your representative because the week before is actually a district week, and then Monday is a travel day. So depending on what time you're able to do it on Monday, you might even be able to land a representative. But at this point, we're not too worried about if you don't actually get to meet with a representative. All of our co-sponsors were secured through staff meetings initially. So that's the best place to start anyway. So I would go for May 9th, regardless of whether you're in D.C. or not. If that date doesn't work for you, though, and you want to try and do it before or just after, like either the week before or the week after, I would say it's better to do it than not do it because that day doesn't work for you. So kind of up to you. And the main thing is just to make sure to let us know what happens. Virgil asks, if our congressman is signed on, would it be best to thank them or visit other congressmen about signing on? I would say those of you in Minnesota have several of your folks who are signed on. So I would think about Minnesota potentially looking at your senators and or neighboring districts. And, certainly I don't think that anyone needs to meet with Nolan's office. I'm saying that because Verge is in Duluth, which is where Rick Nolan is. And we've got that relationship locked up, and so do you. So I don't think you need to take the time to meet with him or his office. And those of you in the rest of Minnesota, I think it kind of depends on how well you feel how good your relationship is. If you feel like you have a decent relationship already and you wouldn't gain a lot from solidifying support further with current co-sponsors, then let's maybe think about some of the Minnesota senators coming on. We need to find some champions in the Senate, and it would make sense for Minnesota to be one of the states where we target for that because Al Franken would be a good candidate, and also you guys have so many more House folks than others. So feel free to also call our office if you want to talk through it a little bit more. But if you've got thoughts on what would be strategic, we can follow your lead. Okay, it looks like I've come to the bottom of the questions. Is there anybody else who has any questions about how to do this? While I'm waiting, I want to encourage us to have fun with this. Move to Amend has not done it before. I have not organized a National Lobby Day before, and so this will be a learning opportunity for all of us. We're all going to do our best. We're all going to kick ass, and we're going to learn a lot of things and figure out how to do it better next time. So let's think of it like that and not get too stressed out about it. And also remember that these are our representatives, so really they should be the ones performing for us, not the other way around. Like a couple more questions. Mark from Jacksonville, Florida. So what are we supposed to do from home? So from home, we're asking you to set up a district meeting. If that, for whatever reason, feels like something that you cannot do, then at a minimum, we need you to call in and get all your friends to call in the week before and the week of, and email as well. And we'll be sending email alerts to the Move to Amend list to tell people how to do this and with the numbers of their representatives and all that good stuff. But really lighting up the phones for those 2 weeks so that we can basically complement the work that is happening in person would be important. And then if you can, organize a district meeting with the district staff of your representative and just do it from there, and then let them know, we have folks in D.C., we have folks who are in district meetings, and we're here to begin the conversation. Then that would be what we're asking folks to do who can't come to D.C. with us. So, Eileen, again, can include on our lobby page the link to check who has gone on with which amendment. Yep. Will do. We'll have to change it a little bit, but I will do that. So what I'll do is I'll I'll provide the link to the other amendments is already there, and you want to look that over because that gives you a comparison of what the other amendments will not accomplish compared to the move to amend amendment. So that's like background and information that you need to go into this meeting with an understanding of. But in addition to that, what I'll also make sure is linked through our site is a link to the official page for each one of those bills so you can see who the co-sponsors are. And you can see if the person you're meeting with has signed on to them. And chances are they probably have signed on to more than one. If they're a Democrat, if they're a Republican, they might not have signed on to any. Let's see. Leo asks, is there a way to contact people in other districts to get them active? Well, we'll be doing that through our kind of emails to our list, and we'll also be sending a few more messages encouraging people to participate in Lobby Day beyond just sending emails and phone calls as well. We'll have the recording from this webinar, so we'll send it to the full list, and there might be some people who sign on from there. If you're wanting to kind of get more people involved near you and you don't have a critical mass of people yet, then the best thing to do would be to sign up on our volunteer page, movetoamend.org/volunteer, and indicate that you're interested in helping to start a group, and you can do that through your first activity being this Lobby Day, and that kind of puts you on in the channel for us to connect you with other people in your area who have also said that they want to get involved. Okay. Catherine in Pennsylvania asked, do we discourage them from signing on to more than one amendment? I would say that at this point, that's probably not a strategic thing to do. However, we certainly want to get across that we feel as though ours is the most, effective amendment and the only real solution. So I wouldn't think that you need to, kind of prop up the other amendments at all. But I don't think that it would be strategic to ask them to not co-sponsor something else or to come off of supporting something else. I mean, at this point, the Democracy for All amendment, the one put forward by Public Citizen et al., the D.C. groups, almost every single Democrat has signed on to that one, and because that was sort of a Democratic Party action to try and juxtapose themselves against the Republicans. And so there are numerous political reasons why they're signed on to the different ones that they're signed on to, and that will be something that we will need to kind of untangle as we go. But at this time, just kind of bringing them into our fold is sort of where we're at, and then educating them further about kind of why half measures are not the solution is kind of the next step. And also remember that from our perspective, it's not like Move to Amend is going to become a big lobbying operation now going forward. We're still focusing on our movement building work and now kind of adding this as a complementary piece. And so, if we're not able to bring these folks along who are in Congress right now, that might not even matter, 5 years down the road. We kind of need to sort of see how deep the relationship is we can build. And as we solidify that, then we can kind of take a harder line with folks once we know them better and they know us better. So let's start with baby steps, I guess is what I'm saying. Just get them to sign on with us. But don't be shy of kind of drawing the distinction about why we have a separate amendment is important, because that is a piece that confuses people, and they just say, oh, why doesn't everybody just sign on together? So we do need to distinguish ourselves. So it's a little bit of walking a line, and that's also part of the learning process here too, that you all will get to do that. We've had to do that, not me personally, but David and others on our staff have been the ones who have been doing that so far. And you'll see it's a bit of a dance to kind of articulate this to
representatives. They're a unique population in terms of explaining this. So hopefully this will help all of us get sharper at thinking about how to do that more effectively. And that'll be part of the evaluation that we'll do. And it says this on the website, but those of you who are part of the Move to Amend affiliate circle, we will be using time on our coalition call in May to debrief and evaluate and all of that together and kind of talk together about what we learned and what lessons we want to take away. So we'll have ample time for synthesis. All right, I don't see any more questions. So there's going to be a survey that will pop up at the end of this, as soon as I'm done. If you could please fill it out, that's where you can let us know that you're interested in plugging in further to this process, and also if there's anything else that we can do for you. So if there's additional questions that you have, or you want to reiterate things that you've asked for to me, that would be an important thing to stay on and do so that that gets captured. You can also contact us in the weeks going forward by phone or by email. If you're an affiliate, better to use the affiliate support email rather than the info email. And please put on your calendar our next webinar by popular request will be on Pledge to Amend and the 2016 Pledge to Amend campaign. So that'll be the first Tuesday in June, June 7th. And we will not be doing a May webinar because that's the week of the summit. So we're just going to skip May and go on to June. So thanks again so much, everyone, for being here, for taking these steps, especially those of you who have never done this before. That's super exciting. I hope that this webinar helped give you an idea of what it will look like and that you're excited to go forward. We will support you, and you kind of have nothing to lose. You can totally do this. So let's get it done and have fun while we do it. So I'm going to close out here. Stay where you are, and your browser will take you to the survey. If you could take a couple minutes to fill it out, and then we will be following up with you in the days ahead. Have a wonderful night, everybody, and we'll talk to you again super soon.